Tower of Babel erupted into our world 25 years ago, forcing humanity into a brutal game system where modern weapons simply failed, until people started awakening with magical powers to hold the line, birthing a new breed of warriors known as class holders. But a devastating plague soon followed, leaking out from the upper tower floors, and doctors were forced to scramble for cures using monster materials, though the resulting medicine was only a temporary fix for the dying. Leaving desperate survivors to raid the tower's depths in search of a permanent solution, then young Master Yeoking finally steps up to the cameras, claiming the abyssal demon dragon Mirabelos is the key to a total cure. And while the press questions the suicidal risk of such a mission, Yeoking brushes off the danger with a calculated, confident smile, revealing that they have already dispatched the strongest mercenary in the game, who's currently staring down the massive, tentacled horror of the abyss. And Lin Xiu activates his blood-burning dodge to weave through the chaos. Lin Xiu locks onto the dragon with his sharp eye skill, but the beast is elusive, forcing him to unleash an arrow rain to flood the area, and the legendary archer pushes his broken body to the absolute limit, as he closes the distance to pin the abyssal demon dragon in a final stand. Coughing up blood while he realizes the dragon's core is finally within his reach, despite the immense pain, he grins with a wild, desperate hunger and triggers his severed body and mind skill to manifest a blade of pure, lethal energy which pierces through the darkness to shatter the tower's defenses in one go, while the system lights up with a cascade of legendary loot and massive experience points. So Lin Xiu stands amidst the fading chaos, barely holding himself together. And the system confirms he has secured the divine artifact Greed, which he reaches for, convinced this key will finally end the plague for Xiaoyu. But the victory is interrupted by a sudden, chilling blast of arcane frost, as a high-level combatant emerges from the shadows to cast Sword of Extreme Cold, and Lin Xiu freezes in disbelief, his senses struggling to process the ambush. Su Ying snatches the divine artifact Greed right out of Lin Xiu's grasp, and the ice shards pinning the legendary mercenary deep into his chest draw fresh blood, leaving Lin Xiu coughing up vital energy as his health bar plummets, while the artifact glows tauntingly in his rival's hand, revealing Su Ying as a Grandmaster-level combatant who views this theft as a simple errand, and Lin Xiu can only stare in betrayal as he realizes his own alliance sold him out, while Su Ying casually toys with the blade of ice she used to pin him down. Wei Wuya, another elite assassin, steps forward to drive the point home, and Lin Xiu feels the cold steel sink deeper as his strength continues to drain, while Wei Wuya gloats about the Arcane Consortium's true goal to hoard greed for themselves, leaving Lin Xiu with a flicker of defiance burning in his crimson eyes, even as the freezing aura begins to crystallize his very breath, and Wei Wuya mocks the fallen hero, relishing the chance to finally crush the strongest mercenary. While the assassin gleefully threatens to tear those defiant eyes right out of his head, and Lin Xiu tries to maintain his composure despite the sheer torture of the moment, Tai Shan looms over the broken mercenary, taunting Lin Xiu with the weight of his level 99 status, as the archer barely hangs on to consciousness while his vision blurs into darkness, and Tai Shan cruelly jokes that the mangled hero is not even worth selling as a corpse, while mocking Lin Xiu for his stubborn refusal to join the consortium's schemes before driving a blade into him, and Wei Wuya justifies the betrayal by prioritizing the consortium's revenue over any actual cure for the plague. Then Wei Wuya steps forward to finish the job, complaining that he's always stuck with the dirty work, while Lin Xiu coughs up blood, realizing the bitter truth that he deserved this fate for his own naivety, and he begins to cycle his final remaining energy, fully accepting his own death alongside those who betrayed him. As Wei Wuya notices the sudden shift in mana and shouts a warning to his allies, while Lin Xiu detonates his own core in a massive, blinding flash of sacrificial power, and the terrified consortium members scramble back, realizing the archer intends to take them all down with him, as the abyssal descent skill consumes the entire battlefield in a vortex of blood and fire, while Lin Xiu's final memories flood back to the day his parents died in a magical beast raid. And he recalls how he trained day and night just to protect his younger sister from the same fate, as the cheering crowds of the past celebrate him as a saint, a sharp contrast to his lonely end. A hidden truth from his sister Xiaoyu surfaces, revealing she carried a secret burden for years, and the reality hits as he remembers her frail state in the hospital, gasping for every breath, while her final plea for him to live well echoes in his mind, cutting deeper than any blade. The memory of her passing forces Lin Xiu to confront his own hollow, agonizing defeat, where the desperate cries of the poor begging for medical help merge with his deep regret, and in the depths of his despair, a singular obsessive focus on his past failures ignites, realizing he spent his life chasing trivial rewards instead of cherishing the moments with his sister. The rage against the Arcane Consortium boils over as his life force drops to zero, fueling an intense, singular desire to eradicate anyone who stood in the way of his peace, which shatters the boundaries of his dying reality with a violent, piercing surge of power. The broken shard of the artifact begins to resonate, feeding on his overwhelming, concentrated hate, while the system acknowledges the activation conditions for the Great Sin Divine artifact are met, and the fractured pieces lock into place, forming a terrifying, multi-eyed mandala of pure obsession, which officially binds the divine power of greed to his soul as the system confirms his status. Meanwhile, a digital alarm clock hits a precise time in a silent, sterile room. A digital alarm clock shatters under an impact, signaling the end of the previous timeline, and Lin Xiu bolts upright in bed, gasping as he realizes he is alive again. He scans his room with a confused look, trying to process his sudden return to the past. Catching his reflection in the mirror, he confirms his younger self has truly been restored, Just as he notices a dark, swirling energy manifesting in his open palm, a serpentine shadow emerges from the void, revealing itself as the demon god of greed, Asmodeus. The entity looms over him with a menacing presence. Clearly tethered to the artifact in his soul, Lin Xiu connects the dots, realizing that the divine power he once died for followed him back. He watches as the shadow forces a system interface into his vision, declaring its intent to drag him into an abyss. The screen updates to reveal his class as a lowly construction worker, completely mismatched with his newfound reality. Watching the system glitch, he senses the true nature of his hidden power trying to surface. A new title burns into the interface, overriding his pathetic stats with the rank of Lord of Greed. He scoffs at the absurdity of the situation, while his hand pulses with forbidden, violet energy. System notifications flood his mind, confirming the awakening of this legendary high-tier class. Reality itself seems to warp as the divine artifact begins to manifest its true form. The bow of greed materializes in Lin Xiu's grip, its violet energy binding itself to his very soul. Reading the system prompt reveals that every effective shot permanently raises his maximum health. But Asmodeus looms over him with a warning, reminding Lin Xiu that such power demands a heavy price. Brutal daily quest forces him to land 30,000 effective shots within 24 hours, and the system clarifies that every hit must actually damage a target to count toward the total. Since hunting down 30,000 creatures in the city is essentially impossible for a mortal, Asmodeus watches with cold amusement as he explains the consequences of failure. For every shot missed, Lin Xiu will be dragged into the greed demon prison to suffer for an hour. The demon god mockingly offers him a way out, suggesting he abandon his destiny to live a quiet, normal life, but Lin Xiu merely smiles at the impossible task, already feeling the massive weight of the bow. Knowing full well that even elite archers can barely fire a few hundred shots a day, he stares down the shadow of Asmodeus and formally accepts the deadly challenge, challenging the system itself because he refuses to back down from this path. Realizing that the Yaoxing Consortium and all his past enemies are now officially in his crosshairs, the energy dissipates as the reality of his cramped, mundane apartment rushes back into focus. Lin Xiu's apartment door swings open with a violent crash, catching his sister Xiaoyu Midran as she complains about the noise and the budget. She spots the shattered remains of the alarm clock and starts lecturing him about their dwindling living expenses. But Lin Xiu suddenly pulls her into a desperate, tight embrace, whispering that he is simply relieved to see her alive again, leaving Xiaoyu completely baffled by his sudden emotional shift. So she pushes him away, complaining that he is acting like they've been separated for years. Though Lin Xiu just laughs, knowing she has no idea her life was supposed to end within the year, Xiaoyu turns to head for the kitchen to start breakfast. While Lin Xiu watches her walk away, realizing that this timeline is finally different, he calls out to her just as a heavy thud echoes through the front door and the door is nearly kicked off its hinges by unknown intruders demanding entrance. Lin Xiu recognizes the voice immediately and his expression turns sharp. Xiaoyu cowers behind him in fear, but he tells her to stay back and remain calm. The thugs barge into the house, demanding the debt payment while Brother Yang's patience runs out. And with a casual dismissal of Lin Xiu's pleas, they order their men to start the beating. Lin Xiu recalls the past trauma of this exact moment and the pure hatred burns in his eyes. As the men grab him and begin the assault, laughing about how he should have known better, the thugs ignore Xiaoyu's desperate cries for them to stop while they continue their brutal violence. Lin Xiu remembers how badly these people ruined his previous life and coldly states he already paid them back. The lead thug mocks his claim, insisting he still owes them a massive debt. Lin Xiu dryly points out that they never mentioned interest rates when he first took the loan. The thug looks stunned by the sudden, calm rebuttal from his victim, and he smugly lectures Lin Xiu on industry rules, claiming the debt is now Brother Yang's to control. A blade is pulled out to remind the debtor exactly where he stands in the food chain. Lin Xiu watches the knife approach, warning the thug that he should rethink his next move. Xiaoyu whispers in terror that the intruders are all class holders. Lin Xiu grabs the blade with his bare hand, snapping the steel like it's nothing. The thugs realize they have picked the wrong target as their arrogance finally falters. Lin Xiu realizes his base stats are mediocre, but the Lord of Greed class has already boosted his physical potential significantly. Asmodeus confirms that while he gains 10 times the usual attribute growth, he's completely barred from leveling up through normal methods. All his power comes from completing greed quests, which means grinding those brutal daily tasks is his only path forward. A heavy footstep snaps him back to reality, cutting his internal monologue short as the debt collectors close in, dismissing these thugs as nothing more than parasites. Lin Xiu smiles with a cold intensity that marks just how much he has changed. He launches a sudden, decisive strike, slamming his palm into a thug's face and sending him spiraling through the air. The impact leaves the man dazed and reeling, unable to process the sudden shift in the power dynamic, calling out to his accomplice. The leader watches in disbelief as his man is tossed aside like a ragdoll. Xiaoyu stares in shock, struggling to reconcile her brother's sudden display of terrifying strength with the person she thought she knew. One of the thugs attempts a desperate counterattack, but Lin Xiu meets the incoming blow with a brutal, precise kick. The attacker boasts about the gap between normal humans and class holders, unaware that Lin Xiu is leagues above him. Glowing mark flares on Lin Xiu's hand as he taps into the raw, forbidden energy of his class. He manifests a blade of pure violet aura, ignoring the thug's posturing as he prepares to end the confrontation. The collector finally notices the overwhelming energy, realizing too late that his target is also a powerful class holder. Xiaoyu watches from the sidelines, still reeling from the discovery of her brother's secret identity. The thug tries to hold his ground. But Lin Xiu is already closing the distance with a lethal violet blade. His opponent attempts a desperate fire-based counterattack, thinking he can still turn the tide of this fight. Lin Xiu slices through the defense as if it were nothing but paper. He slams the thug into the floor, pinning him down with overwhelming force and speed. Glancing at the fading embers of the fire ability, Lin Xiu remains completely unfazed by the threat. Stomping down on the collector's arm, he ensures the man stays exactly where he wants him. One brutal strike sends the thug flying across the room, his weapon shattering against the sheer intensity of the aura. The remaining thug realizes his partner is finished and tries to flee. But Lin Xiu is already looming over them, staring up in genuine terror. The leader wonders how a mere kid could possess such monstrous power. He swings his blade in a frantic final attempt to take someone down with him. Lin Xiu does not even flinch as he looms over the desperate man. Whispering a cold threat about slicing him into pieces, he presses the glowing blade right against the thug's throat. The collector breaks down, staring into the abyss of his own impending death. Silence fills the room as the weight of the situation finally hits the defeated man, begging for his life. The thug drops his weapon and yields to Lin Xiu's absolute dominance. With a final, chilling warning to relay his message to the boss, Lin Xiu dismisses the thugs. Crushing the remnants of the energy blade in his hand to prove he is not bluffing, the air ripples with raw, volatile power as he prepares to escalate things further. A blinding discharge of energy erupts, cutting through the atmosphere with lethal intent. Light tears across the landscape, signaling that the hunt for the organization has truly begun. Staring into the distance with cold resolve, Lin Xiu declares he is taking the fight directly to Brother Yang. Tossing the broken, trembling collectors aside like literal trash, he orders them to get out of his sight. The terrified men scramble to obey, fleeing the scene in a pathetic, desperate rush with the immediate danger gone. Xiaoyu finally turns her eyes toward her brother. Lingering confusion and genuine shock color her expression as she processes the scene. Asking if he has been possessed by some ancient spirit, she tries to make sense of his sudden, violent transformation. Brushing off her concern with a laugh, Lin Xiu insists he is still her same old brother, despite his casual explanation. The doubt clearly remains etched on Xiaoyu's face, pointing out the obvious. She warns that Brother Yang will never let this humiliation slide. Confirming her fears, Lin Xiu reveals the threat is actually a berserker named Zhang Yang. Xiaoyu stares at Lin Xiu in disbelief, demanding to know why his expression is suddenly so terrifying. Brushing off the intensity with a casual pat, Lin Xiu insists the situation is just a minor issue. But the moment he spots her arm, his playful demeanor instantly shatters into pure focus. Grabbing her wrist to inspect the skin, he leaves Xiaoyu completely blindsided by his sudden physical touch. Dark, jagged marks creep across her arm, revealing the progression of her Tower Mark syndrome. Realizing the curse is manifesting much faster than in his past life, Lin Xiu goes cold. Pulling her hand away to hide the decay, she tries to play it cool despite the visible pain, insisting she is fine. Xiaoyu begs Lin Xiu not to worry over nothing and turns away, retreating to her room to change. She leaves him alone in the quiet of the morning. Standing in the silence, Lin Xiu processes the harsh reality of her ticking clock. Knowing the Black Glove Syndicate handles the Yaoxing Consortium's dirtiest work, he begins to calculate his next move. Deciding to collect interest on the debt they owe him, he vows to follow their own rules to the letter, remembering how Xiaoyu died 1 year later in his previous life. He clenches his fist in silent resolve, paralyzed by his total inability to afford her medical bills back then. He refuses to let that history repeat, knowing the secret to her cure lies hidden within the first floor's secret realm. He prepares to hunt it down. Zhang Yang looms over his headquarters, fuming as he stares down his defeated subordinates. 3 of his class holders have just crawled back in, battered and completely humiliated. Their shredded appearance makes it clear that they failed their mission in spectacular fashion. Zhang Yang crushes his own fist in a display of pure, unadulterated rage at their incompetence. They desperately stammer that Lin Xiu is simply too strong for them to handle. He does not want to hear excuses, so he brutally swats one of them aside. The impact sends his own man flying through the air like a discarded ragdoll. Watching his subordinate collapse, Zhang Yang spits out a single word of absolute contempt. Trash. He towers over the remaining cowards, his presence filling the room with suffocating, lethal intent. Terror ripples through the room as everyone realizes their leader is officially out for blood. He barks an order for them to drag Lin Xiu to him immediately or face consequences. Scrambling to obey before they become the next victims, the gang members scatter in panic. Zhang Yang glares into the distance, his eyes burning with the promise of a violent reckoning. Meanwhile, an arrogant stranger approaches Lin Xiu and Xiaoyu, mocking them for their appearance. This guy clearly thinks he is in charge, pointing fingers and talking down to them. The gatekeeper keeps pushing his luck, questioning if Lin Xiu and Xiaoyu are even allowed on the property. Xiaoyu is clearly rattled by the confrontation, wondering if they actually walked up to the wrong address. That smug guard ignores her concern, doubling down on his claim that they are just common thieves. Lin Xiu finally snaps, his eyes locking onto the man with a cold, dangerous intensity, grabbing the guard's arm in a vice-like grip. Lin Xiu demands he call Jun Yuxun to confirm his identity. The gatekeeper starts whimpering in pain, his bravado instantly evaporating as the pressure on his arm spikes. Still clutching the man's wrist, Lin Xiu ignores the pathetic threats as the guard struggles to break free. His patience is completely spent, leaving him with nothing left to say to such a bottom-tier loser. A loud car horn cuts through the tension, signaling the arrival of someone who actually matters. A flashy sports car pulls up to the gate, and the driver immediately starts barking at the guard for the delay. The gatekeeper instantly switches to bootlicker mode, apologizing to the young master while eyeing the newcomers. Everything shifts when the driver spots Lin Xiu, his attitude flipping from impatient to genuinely excited. Wang Yu hears the guard's excuses and realizes the man was actually harassing his old friend. The The young master's mood goes from zero to lethal, his expression turning sharp as he glares at the guard. Wang Yu delivers a brutal kick to the gatekeeper, sending the guy sprawling for daring to insult Lin Zhu. Wang Yu sends the trembling guard packing, ensuring he never shows his face near them again. Watching his old friend, Lin Zhu recalls how Wang Yu's talent as a shield knight made him famous. But that fame did not save the heir from the dark realities of the tower, where a brutal betrayal on the 55th floor left the entire Wang family ruined and decimated. And as those memories fade, Wang Yu turns back to address his old college buddy, questioning what kind of trouble Lin Zhu has managed to stir up this time around. Hearing that Lin Zhu casually took down the fierce tiger gang's muscle, Wang Yu realizes the severity of the situation and warns that Zhang Yang is essentially a rabid dog, deciding they need privacy. Wang Yu leads Lin Zhu and Xiaoyu toward his own home. While Xiaoyu stays close, trusting in her brother's decision to keep her safe, Lin Zhu confirms he will handle Zhang Yang directly but asks his friend to look after Xiaoyu for now. Although Wang Yu agrees to provide shelter, he finds the request for him to stay behind deeply suspicious. Lin Zhu cuts the conversation short, insisting that his true priority is entering the Tower of Babel. And as Wang Yu questions if he really means the tower, Xiaoyu mentions her brother is already a class holder, prompting Wang Yu to ask if Lin Zhu is really that strong. Lin Zhu confirms his goal is the Tower of Babel to find a cure for Xiaoyu. And for the first time, he feels the weight of his resolve to protect those he lost before. Vowing that this life will be different for everyone he cares about, Wang Yu teases him for his sudden intensity, but Lin Zhu ignores the noise to focus on the mission, confident that Zhang Yang's men will not follow them here. He prepares to head out alone, stopping only to give his friend one final cryptic warning. He tells Wang Yu to stick to the path of a shield knight no matter what happens, leaving a confused Wang Yu and a silent Xiaoyu to process the demand. Stepping into the bustling market district where every vendor claims to hold the best goods, the street is crowded with merchants hawking their wares to anyone passing by. A merchant tries to catch his attention with promises of honest pricing. Ignoring the noise, Lin Zhu keeps walking while scanning the shady stalls for what he really needs. A crooked vendor spots him and tries to push fake potions like plague nemesis and rat poison. Calling the merchant out as a fraud, Lin Zhu dismisses the useless inventory on site. Realizing these scammers are likely working under Zhang Yang's umbrella, he moves deeper into the district. Reaching the threshold, Lin Zhu stares down the massive structure looming ahead, knowing the Tower of Babel has been public knowledge for a full decade. He understands the common consensus claims the first floor is already completely cleared. But his memories tell a different story about a hidden secret realm within. The Xinghuo Consortium only stumbles upon it by accident a week from now, obtaining the priceless active crystal source core that sparks a massive citywide scramble, and he knows that specific core is the only thing capable of curing Tower Mark syndrome. Turning his focus toward the prize, Lin Zhu prepares to claim it before the consortium ever gets the chance. Finding this secret realm in the sprawling abandoned city is a massive logistical nightmare. But he has a clear mental map of the route from his previous life. Stepping into the decaying ruins, he navigates the path toward the hidden entrance, while keeping a sharp eye out for any unexpected complications along the way. The sudden appearance of glowing red eyes in the shadows stops him cold. Realizing the mobs are already active, he steels himself for an immediate fight. Mutated giant rats swarm out from the debris and surround his position. Lin Zhu recognizes these modified giant rats as the standard fodder for this floor. Drawing his blade, he decides to use the swarm to grind out his challenge quest. The ruins shake as more creatures emerge from the dark corners of the zone, gathering his focus. He readies his weapon for the initial wave of attackers. A rat lunges with a piercing screech, but Lin Zhu barely registers the movement. His blade pulses with a steady, lethal energy as he prepares to strike. One swift slash bisects the beast midair before it can even reach his space. The system confirms the kill and awards him experience points for the clean takedown. Checking his progress, Lin Zhu notes his max HP has already started to climb. The squeaking echoes louder as the rest of the pack closes the distance. Their glowing red eyes lock onto him, signaling a coordinated charge from the shadows. Surrounded by the growing horde, he stands his ground amidst the crumbling city ruins. Frustration flickers across his face as he questions the sheer density of the swarm. Relentless waves of rats continue to pour out, forcing him to fight on instinct. Spinning through the fray, he keeps his guard up while carving a path forward. Lin Zhu lands another clean hit, watching his maximum health climb as he grinds the quest. The endless swarm of rats continues to swarm him, forcing a constant high-speed defensive dance. Unleashing his split arrow skill, he tears through the incoming line of beasts with ease. Confusion settles in as he notices the spawn count is far higher than his past memories. Back in his previous life, this first floor encounter was a trivial task for a mercenary. But now, the overwhelming density of the horde feels like a deliberate challenge meant to test him. Channeling his inner strength, he refuses to back down, fully embracing the role of the apex predator, taunting the rats to swarm him. He prepares his bow to turn the entire area into a kill zone. Purple energy arcs through the air, piercing multiple targets in a single devastating rhythmic barrage. Hunger for more power drives him forward. His current progress feeling like barely a scratch on the surface. Stepping up the intensity, he unleashes a flurry of arrows that light up the dark corridor. Every shot connects with lethal precision, clearing the path while the system counts his mounting kills. The shot count hits nearly 7,000, yet Lin Zhu demands even more from his own stamina. Hitting 10,000 kills is just the start, and he still has hours left on his clock. A sudden system notification pings, granting him a new level-up reward for his relentless efforts. Lin Zhu scans his status panel, weighing the options for his hidden trait reward. Picking the greedy route is the only way forward for someone in his position. And with a grin, he claims all 3 skills, officially triggering the Lord of Greed. System alerts confirm he has mastered Covetous, Keen Eye, Split Arrow, and Swift Pace. Activating his new vision, Lin Zhu locks onto the vital points of the encroaching horde. Target indicators lock onto every modified giant rat within his field of view. Dashing through the fray with swift pace, he sighs at the predictable loot drops. But there is no time to complain as he draws his bow for a wide-range strike. Unleashing Split Arrow, the single shot blossoms into a lethal volley of energy. The projectiles tear through the front lines of the rat swarm, clearing space instantly. A moment of silence follows, and Lin Zhu narrows his eyes at the sudden quiet deep in the shadows. The horde begins to regroup for another coordinated assault. Noting their retreat, Lin Zhu prepares his stance. Fully expecting them to return with a vengeance, movement streaks past his blind spot, but he reacts before the rats can even close the gap. Another wave crashes into him, proving that these creatures have no concept of fear. The flanking maneuver catches Lin Zhu off guard, leaving him surrounded by the screeching horde with his mobility skill on cooldown. He decides to dive directly into the fray to maintain control. Incoming attacks land repeatedly, but the damage is negligible against his massive health bar. Realizing his own tankiness has evolved, he stops worrying about taking minor hits. His health pool sits comfortably above 10,000, making him practically untouchable by these small fry energy crackles as he unleashes a powerful blast into the thickest part of the cluster. Beams of light cut through the dark, vaporizing any rat foolish enough to remain in range. He challenges the massive monsters to test whether their sheer numbers can actually drain his stamina. A new, much larger creature emerges from the shadows, silencing the lesser squeaks with its presence. The mutated boss stares him down, triggering a surge of recognition from his previous life. This modified giant rat variant is an anomaly that should not exist on the first floor at all. Luck seems to be on his side as he marks the beast for his next target. The system identifies the hidden boss, confirming that he reached this threshold by slaughtering 10,000 others. Checking his status, he notes the absurd 5% health recovery rate per second. This level of regeneration essentially turns him into an unkillable machine for the duration of the fight. The beast locks onto Lin Zhu with a corrosive spit attack, but he sidesteps the incoming assault, keeping his distance from those massive jaws. Activating Swift Pace to weave through the chaos, he watches the floor dissolve under the acid, noting just how potent this creature's toxins really are. The sheer impossibility of this boss in his past life flashes through his mind. While the amalgamation splits its form into smaller, more chaotic segments, wanting to save his mana pool, Lin Zhu prepares his next move, drawing on Split Arrow to clear the field. His effective shot count climbs steadily as he inches toward the 30,000 mark. Something shifts in the creature's pattern that catches him off guard. The swarm surges forward with a deafening screech, forcing him to dodge the heavy impact of another giant limb crush. Realizing that percentage-based damage is a nightmare he cannot afford to tank, he recalls the critical flaw he discovered in his former life. Specifically that the creature enters a confused state after using its own mass to crush its smaller components. Lin Zhu charges his energy, treating this high-stakes boss fight like a routine daily chore, landing consecutive shots as the modified giant rat amalgam staggers, its weakened state nearing its end. He knows that for anyone else, the real nightmare begins the moment the boss stops being stunned. Because the secret to surviving this encounter is tracking down the elusive control core during that brief window. And since he possesses the knowledge of this boss's exact mechanics, he remains entirely unfazed, locking his gaze onto the glowing center of the amalgam. He remembers the days when he had to wait for the rats to group up, but he takes a moment to realize that he literally wrote the first research paper on this specific hidden boss. So he fires another precise strike directly into the heart of the beast, causing the creature to drop its cell rat core and plummet into a state of panic. Lin Zhu does not hesitate to press the advantage while the boss is broken, channeling more power into his bow as he prepares to finish the job, targeting the regenerating core to trigger yet another effective shot, stacking up damage while the rat struggles to reorganize its shredded mass. He finds it almost amusing that his own pain threshold has become so high that the boss's attacks feel non-existent. Lin Zhu keeps his focus on the boss, debating if this rat can hold out until his dailies are finished. The quest counter creeps upward to 29,998 as he maintains his relentless rhythm. Ignoring the surrounding chaos of the horde, he prepares his final barrage without breaking his pace, drawing his last 2 arrows. He prepares to end the rat's misery for good, but a sudden, unidentified magical projectile streaks across the battlefield. Forcing Lin Zhu to dodge the incoming strike that rips through the air near his position, the blast impacts the giant rat boss, obliterating it in a flash of blinding light. Smoke clears to reveal the beast has been completely taken down by the unexpected attack. A system announcement flashes across the area, confirming the Radiant Star Party just claimed the hidden boss kill. Another group has clearly been lurking in the shadows, waiting to steal the spoils. Captain Liu and his elite squad emerge from the debris, already salivating over the potential rewards. One of their members grabs the dropped loot core, clearly intending to keep it for himself. Lin Zhu snatches the man's hand midair, stopping the theft instantly, demanding to know why they are interfering when he was the one actually fighting the boss. The intruder sneers at him, clearly unbothered by the fact that he just hijacked a kill. Lin Zhu immediately clocks the squad's composition, identifying Shen Jin as the priest, Abur as the flame mage, and Liu Wei as the gunner. While the Radiant Star Consortium's reputation starts to weigh on him, he recalls their notorious coordination in previous raids, noting how Liu Wei anchors their offense while the Hammer Warrior holds the line, and Abur keeps the damage high alongside Shen Jin's relentless healing support. Remembering that this very party was once wiped out on the 69th floor due to a lack of crowd control, which forced them to hire mercenaries just to stay relevant in the rankings, So Lin Zhu realizes their supposedly elite status is actually a fragile facade, and he starts channeling a dark, pulsing energy, while his shadow companion whispers that these guild members are nothing more than perfect fodder, urging him to finish his quest by taking their lives. And the shadow demands he stop talking and start executing, pushing him to pierce their hearts without a second thought, until Lin Zhu snaps back at the shadow, telling it to pipe down, and he brushes the entity aside to focus on the target in front of him. The shadow beast mocks Lin Zhu for his calm demeanor, but Lin Zhu could not care less about their banter, his eyes locked on the Radiant Star Consortium squad. He asks the shadow if it really thinks he will let them just walk away. And while he worries about witnesses, he realizes he can just kill them all to keep his secret. Lin Zhu shifts the conversation to the demon prison, curious about the elite monsters trapped within. The shadow laughs at his arrogance, calling him a mere scrap of meat compared to the prison's legendary guards. But Lin Zhu only cares about the potential experience and loot drops from those high-level targets, and he tells the shadow he's ditching the quest to dive straight into the danger. The shadow is bewildered by his suicidal resolve but decides to stop holding him back. Lin Zhu calls out to the Radiant Star Consortium, drawing a crackling energy blade from the air. He tells the squad he has no personal vendetta but demands they hand over his stolen loot right now. The captain and his men stare back in complete disbelief, and they struggle to process the sheer audacity of his demand. The squad erupts into mocking laughter, finding his ultimatum hilariously pathetic. Captain Liu holds the crystal core high, threatening Lin Zhu with a slow and painful death for his insolence. The system timer hits 0 and the quest fails, marking the Radiant Star Squad as the cause of this mess, and the punishment kicks in as Lin Zhu is forcibly warped away, dragging him straight into the hellish landscape of the demon prison, where a clawed hand emerges from the shadows to greet him, and Lin Zhu draws his blade to stand his ground. Finding the familiar demonic energy oddly welcoming in this desolate wasteland, a system warning flashes about the extreme level gap in this zone, but Lin Zhu brushes off the danger and demands to see some real action. Suddenly, a massive beast lunges from the earth to strike, forcing a quick reaction as the monster tears through the ground. Lin Zhu activates Covetous Keen Eye to lock onto the incoming threat, scanning the demon prison biter that already outclasses the previous boss. Teeth snap shut inches from his body in a blurred display of aggression, as he narrowly avoids the massive jaws with a desperate leap. The demon prison biter hits with blinding speed, dropping Lin Zhu's health bar by nearly half in one strike, and he barely manages to steady himself as the creature lunges again. The monster unleashes a spine blade barrage that tears through his armor, leaving him trapped in its jaws and struggling to shake the beast off. But instead of panicking, Lin Zhu shifts into a deadly point-blank offensive stance, forcing the biter to realize the prey has suddenly become the predator, as he activates Split Arrow to its maximum overload, and he begins a relentless high-speed assault on the creature's hide, striking repeatedly until the monster can no longer withstand the concentrated energy, which finally brings the level 25 threat down for good, allowing Lin Zhu to catch his breath while mocking his own near-death experience, because he has successfully mastered this high-risk keen-eye shotgun technique. But his brief moment of triumph is cut short by a warning from his shadow companion, who tells him to look behind him at the growing swarm emerging from the wasteland, and Lin Zhu grins, realizing he has finally found a playground worthy of his ambition.